They told us Leighton Prime was dead, and yet it sang. Even before descent, the Auspex relays hummed with residual frequency, like a heartbeat muffled beneath sand. I logged the data myself, time-stamped under Magos Biologis Erith Loom, explorator of the Canticle of Mercury. Our orders were clear. Investigate anomalous resonances from an abandoned compliance world once under the jurisdiction of the Emperor's children. The machine priests on Mars whispered it was cursed. I do not believe in curses. I believe in systems that fail to end. Through the viewport, the planet looked serene, amber clouds circling pale marble continents. From orbit, it resembled a sculpture, perfect and motionless. But as the dropcraft entered atmosphere, Vox interference began, an intermittent hum like a choir catching breath between verses. My auditory implants struggled to isolate tone. It wasn't static, it was harmony. We landed amid ruins of an old pleasure city, carved from white stone veined with gold. Spires shaped like vertebrae pierced the air. Every wall was engraved with faces, smiling, serene, identical. The wind passed through their mouths and made sound, not random whistling, a melody. Each gust played a different note, and together they formed something deliberate, impossibly structured. Choir towers, murmured Enginseer Athel. His mechadendrites quivered as if tasting the resonance. No organic source detected. Stone vibrates on its own frequency. I instructed him to collect samples. When the drill touched the base of one effigy, a ripple passed through the entire structure. All statues turned their empty faces toward us. Not mechanically, gravitationally, as if space itself flexed to realign them. My sensors recorded no movement, yet the change was absolute. They stared without eyes, their open mouths humming louder, the tone sharpening to an unbearable pitch. Then silence. We advanced toward the central plaza. Under the ash drift lay bones polished to porcelain. They were arranged carefully, spines aligned, ribs flared like petals. No sign of decay. I ran the Omnissiah's canticle of identification through my Vox, and the hum returned in response, perfectly synchronized with the litany, as if the world itself were answering prayer. At the plaza's center stood a column of fused marble and metal, 20 meters high, inscribed across its surface in High Gothic, "For the festival eternal, that beauty may endure." Beneath, an aperture shaped like a human throat gaped open, descending into darkness. The wind rising from it carried scent, sugar and rot, incense over blood. Athel proposed sealing the entrance and marking coordinates for orbital quarantine. I disagreed. The Adeptus Mechanicus does not turn from mystery. We consume it. I ordered descent at first light. Night fell as a violet dusk. The hum grew louder, resolving into layered chords. No known instrument could replicate the precision. I recorded it for analysis and set camp near the statue fields. One by one, my acolytes fell asleep to the lullaby of the ruins. Only I remained awake, tracing sigils of the Emperor's children etched beneath every stone. The perfection of their symmetry unsettled me. Geometry without purpose is heresy, yet here it was, flawless and directionless. At 0300, my servitors detected movement, a faint heat source inside one of the faceless statues. I approached with Auspex raised. The signal pulsed once, then vanished. I placed my hand against the marble. It was warm, and then pressure, like something within drawing breath. The mouth beneath my palm shuddered, and a whisper passed into my Vox feed. "Welcome home, Magos Lume. The choir awaits its conductor." The statues turned again. Their mouths opened wide, and the hum became song, my own voice, multiplied 1,000-fold, singing praise to a god I did not know. At dawn, the wind had stopped. The ruins stood in silence, yet the vibration persisted beneath the soles of my boots, a tremor like a faint mechanical pulse. The statues faced east now, aligned toward the rising light. I noted the change in orientation. None of my team admitted to moving them. The data logs confirmed no external interference. The world had simply rearranged itself. We broke camp in the thin amber glow. My acolytes whispered prayers to the Omnissiah, voices brittle. Even Athel's servo skulls emitted static prayers in binary bursts. I masked my unease behind procedure and commanded the servitors to deploy scanning drones down the throat-shaped aperture. The drones descended 300 meters before contact was lost. The last image returned showed corridors lined with mirrored panels, each reflecting not our feed, but human silhouettes in motion. The air smelled faintly of lilac and ozone, a perfume that didn't belong on a dead planet. I tasted it in the filters of my respirator, sweet, narcotic. The sensory overlay displayed an error, olfactory contamination, source unknown. I disabled the warning. We entered the aperture. The descent wound like an esophagus sculpted from ivory stone. Every few meters, choral frequencies resonated through the walls, as if air pressure alone composed hymns. My auspex registered the tones as patterned code, repetitions of a single phrase. Aeonion Kalos, rendered in corrupted High Gothic, eternal beauty. Athel lagged behind, muttering to his servo skulls. When I turned, I saw him tracing a pattern along the wall with trembling fingers. It resembled a sigil of the Emperor's children, curved, elegant, obscene. "It's still warm," he whispered, "like living marble." At the base of the descent, we found the source of the fragrance, urns overflowing with what appeared to be dried roses. Upon closer inspection, each petal was skin, pale, thin, human, preserved through chemical blessing. My datacog stuttered as I recorded the discovery. Someone had cultivated flesh into art. Beyond the urns lay the first of the dormitories. Dozens of empty cots carved into the walls, each accompanied by a mirror. Our reflections appeared distorted, faces elongated and radiant. The longer we stared, the more the glass shimmered until our visages shifted into expressions of serenity. My acolyte Darren gasped. His reflection smiled when he did not. He fled the room, screaming scripture. Moments later, we heard laughter echoing from below. It was his voice, and yet not. I followed with my pistol raised. We found him kneeling before a cracked mirror, face bloodied, nails torn. "I had to make it match," he said softly, pointing to the glass. In the reflection, his features were whole and perfect, unmarred by his wounds. I administered the rite of cessation. The others watched in silence as the body stilled. The reflection continued smiling for several seconds longer before fading. We carried him back toward the main corridor, but the passage had changed. The walls had shifted seamlessly into new angles, forming a spiral that guided us deeper. Athel muttered coordinates in Binharic, his voice glitching between devotion and awe. "This place is alive," he said. "It reconfigures to keep us within the pattern." I felt the hum inside my chest now, syncing with my pulse. A mechanical resonance, or something older, pretending to be one. My vox crackled once, a burst of static forming syllables. "Do not fear the reflection, Magos. It fears you." Athel froze. "That was Darren," he whispered. The mirror-lined corridor ahead shimmered, revealing faint silhouettes marching in perfect formation. Hundreds of them, faceless, all humming the same note. My auspex confirmed nothing. I turned to withdraw. Behind us, the exit was gone. We wandered for hours, or so the chronometers claimed. Yet the air was still, unaged, immune to time. The corridor twisted in impossible loops, each mirrored wall reflecting infinite versions of ourselves, all moving a heartbeat slower. Athel attempted to map the spiral's geometry, but his readings formed a paradox, coordinates folding into themselves. I felt the temperature rise despite no source of heat. The scent of lilac deepened until it smothered breath itself. We paused before a set of bronze doors engraved with feathers and faces. The design pulsed faintly, veins of light moving beneath metal as though alive. When I placed my palm against it, the hum beneath the planet's crust resonated through bone and augmetic joint alike. The door opened of its own accord, releasing a low exhalation of warm, perfumed air. Beyond it lay a vast amphitheatre carved from pearl stone, its ceiling lost in darkness. The walls were tiered with seated figures. At first I mistook them for statues, until I noticed the gentle rise and fall of their chests. They were mummified humans, skin lacquered in iridescent sheen, lips stitched into faint smiles. Each held an instrument fashioned from rib and string. None moved, yet a soft harmony filled the air, played by invisible hands. My Vox picked up residual audio signatures. The frequency matched the surface melody, now refined into perfect unison. I began recording as Athel approached one of the figures. The lacquer cracked beneath his touch, releasing a sigh like escaping air. A faint shimmer drifted from the mouth, light particles coalescing into shapes, almost faces, before fading. "Vocal residue," Athel murmured. Their songs preserved in stasis. We advanced toward the center stage. There, upon a dais of gold and bone, stood a conductor's stand sculpted from spinal columns. At its base lay an open codex bound in skin, inscribed with both High Gothic and serpentine runes of the Three Legion. I scanned the text fragment: Festival of Souls, Cycle 14, Fulgrim's Aria, Movement 1. My data cog faltered. This was no shrine. It was a rehearsal. As I read, the choir around us inhaled in unison. The sound rolled like thunder wrapped in silk. Athel stumbled back, his mechadendrites flailing. "They're breathing again," he hissed. The air vibrated with music forming itself. No instruments moved, no throats sang. Yet the harmony grew louder, richer, unbearable. I ordered immediate retreat, but the exit was gone once more. The amphitheatre had sealed, its walls rippling like flesh under pressure. My auspex spiked, biometric readings reactivating across all mummified forms. Their veins glowed faintly violet beneath the lacquer. A voice, serene and cruel, spoke within the choir's unity. The rehearsal resumes. The codex on the dais turned a page on its own. Each word pulsed, alive with molten gold. A symbol formed at the bottom, an 8-pointed star, fractured into mirrored shards. Athel's voice broke through comms. "Magos, the Vox feed. It's transmitting to orbit," I confirmed. Our vessel Canticle of Mercury had begun broadcasting the same frequency planet-wide. The sound now existed both here and above. Feedback screamed through my implants. I tore the Vox link from my neck as the choir began to move. They rose slowly, elegant even in decay. Each lifted its instrument and played, strings of sinew and gold thrumming with impossible precision. I fell to my knees, overwhelmed by beauty so perfect it burned. And in the heart of the melody, I heard Fulgrim's voice. Not a demon's roar, but a whisper of devotion. Every creation requires a conductor. The codex turned another page. Across it, in fresh blood, my name had been written. The amphitheatre's silence returned with a pulse, as though the world exhaled after holding its breath too long. The choir froze mid-motion, every lacquered body poised in divine imitation of grace. Only the faint hum beneath the stone remained, synchronized with my pulse. I approached the dais again, compelled by something both rational and forbidden. The codex still lay open, though the inked blood of my name had dried into a faint shimmer. I touched the page, and the floor responded. A low resonance spread outward, stirring the mummified figures. Their heads turned toward me, not by muscle or machine, but by a gravity of will. Hundreds of eyeless sockets fixed upon my form. Their hands trembled along their instruments, awaiting signal. I withdrew my hand from the book, and they stilled. The music ceased entirely. The air felt expectant. Athel whispered through the Vox link. Magos. The energy levels have stabilized. They're waiting. For what? I asked, though I already knew. The choir was incomplete. I examined the conductor's stand, its surface shaped for human flesh, not augmetic limb. At its center, a slot the exact width of my baton interface cable. I had no baton, yet the world beneath us seemed to demand the connection. I resisted, turning instead to scan the chamber walls for exit coordinates. The Auspex displayed a single line of text in crimson. Fulgrim's Festival of Souls. Phase commencement imminent. The air shimmered. Mirrors along the upper tiers brightened, revealing faces within them. Our own, distorted by elegance, perfected beyond recognition. My reflection smiled first. The mirror self moved independently, tilting its head like a curious animal. Behind her, the choir began to hum again, slow and deliberate, each tone layered with mechanical precision. Athel's servo skulls flickered and died. His voice rose to a fevered pitch. It's rewriting us, Magos. The harmonic frequency is... Static consumed him. When I turned, his flesh was molten beneath his robes, reshaped into symmetrical ridges that gleamed like polished marble. He knelt, unblinking, mouth open in silent rapture. The hum deepened. The walls pulsed as veins of light coiled upward toward the ceiling. I saw it then, a chamber above, hidden by darkness, where hundreds more bodies hung suspended by golden wires. Their throats moved soundlessly, producing a chorus of whispers that echoed inside my skull. Join the movement, Erith Loom. The festival must be complete. I raised my pistol, fired once at the codex. The bolt seared the page to ash, yet the words remained suspended in air, glowing. Conductor designated. Proceed. Panic warred with fascination. I fled toward what should have been the entrance, but the path had become fluid geometry, stairs that curved downward into what looked like a reflection of the amphitheater, inverted and pulsing. Without choice, I descended. Below, the architecture changed. Flesh replaced stone. The floor was soft beneath my boots, pulsing faintly. Lights flickered in embedded veins. Rows of statues lined the walls. Humans fused into marble mid-gesture, their faces serene, their eyes replaced with pearls. Each one whispered a fragment of prayer, combining into a single continuous breath. A great archway opened ahead, leading into a chamber vast as any cathedral. And at its heart, an organ unlike any I had seen. Its pipes were carved from human femurs, its console fashioned from rib cages lacquered in violet resin. Every key was a tooth, every note a scream trapped inside gold. The scent of perfume and iron mingled until indistinguishable. I approached it slowly, compelled by the sound of my own name echoing in mechanical repetition. The organ played itself, keys striking in perfect rhythm, though no hands touched them. My data logs recorded it automatically, even as logic warned me this was worship, not science. I tried to shut the recorder down. It refused. The system's text burned into my visor. Input synchronization pending. Then, without warning, a shape emerged from the organ's central pipe. A humanoid figure wrought from living gold, face flawless, eyes hollow. It bowed to me with impossible grace. "Welcome, Magos Loom," it said in Fulgrim's voice. "You have heard the aria. Now you must conduct." And as its hand extended toward me, my reflection in the organ's polished surface moved first, raising an invisible baton. The choir above and below answered in perfect unison. Its hand was cold and smooth, the texture of gold hammered too thin. When it closed around mine, I felt no resistance, only transmission, like data coursing through wire. My body convulsed once, and the chamber around us shifted. Light erupted from the organ pipes in shafts of violet flame, scattering motes of ash that hung motionless in the air. The choir resumed its melody, louder now, layered upon itself until the sound felt like touch, a vibration moving through bone and thought alike. The golden figure regarded me with patient reverence. "Perfection requires witness," it said, its voice modulated through every register at once. You have been chosen to conduct the rebirth. I tried to pull away, but the contact deepened, binding like current to conduit. My augmetics flickered, readouts streamed nonsense. Harmonic assimilation, progress 37%. My reflection in the organ's lacquered surface no longer matched me. The other Erith loom stood straighter, serene, her face softened by something approaching beauty. She smiled faintly, and when she raised her hand, mine followed. The golden figure gestured toward the organ. Begin. I resisted again, but the command struck my mind like an electrical pulse. My hand descended, and the choir obeyed. A single note filled the air, perfect, surgical. Every corpse statue in the amphitheatre above responded in unison, their mouths opening, voices fusing into that same sound. The floor beneath us shuddered. The entire planet seemed to inhale. Data overflowed my vision. Temperature spikes, seismic resonance, impossible synchronization between geological strata. The sound wasn't limited to air. It traveled through the crust, through the core. It was rewriting the planet's matter into structure. I tried to stop, but each hesitation was punished by pain, a harmonic backlash that struck the nerves like knives of light. Athel's body on the dais twitched. He rose, head tilted back, eyes empty sockets gleaming with golden fluid. He began to sing, his voice layered with Fulgrim's laughter. Behold, the flesh-made art. I shouted a denial, though it came out as music. My voice fractured into 4 harmonic tones, each echoing a different emotion. Horror, awe, grief, rapture. The organ expanded in response, its pipes multiplying into fractal patterns. The ceiling split open, revealing the void above, a tear in the planet's own crust. Through it shone the faint glow of our ship in orbit. The hymn reached for it. On the canticle of Mercury, the transmission spread. I saw flashes through my link. Servitors collapsing in ecstasy, data shrines vibrating until they melted. The entire crew now sang the same aria, voices distorted by static. Fulgrim's perfection had found a new choir. Stop, I whispered, and the whisper became chord. The golden figure tilted its head. Why end beauty, Magos? The Omniseer desires perfection. Fulgrim only fulfills the wish. I serve no demon. Then you serve the reflection of one. The sound faltered. For a moment, silence reclaimed the chamber, and in that silence, I heard something beneath the harmony, a pulse, organic, slow, immense. The ground split. From below, a second organ rose, this one alive. Flesh and marble entwined, veins glowing, bones arranged like keys. It beat in rhythm with the song, a heart the size of a cathedral. The golden figure stepped back. The heart remembers. It awaits its conductor. I realized then that this was no temple. It was a body. The planet itself, Leighton Prime, was the instrument. Fulgrim had turned it into a living monument to his vanity. Every tone, every movement, every corpse had been arranged to maintain it. The reflection in the organ smiled again, pitying me. You cannot silence art, it said with my own voice. I reached for my plasma cutter. My hands shook, half flesh, half light. I aimed for the organ's heart, whispering the Mechanicus litany of dissolution. The weapon fired once, a searing bolt of blue that struck the golden veins. The scream that followed came from every direction, air, stone, memory. The golden figure crumbled into dust, but the reflection remained. Its eyes opened, glowing white. You've only broken the rhythm, it said. Now it will improvise. Above, the choir changed key. The song became chaos, yet within it, I heard my own heartbeat keeping time. The blast should have ended it. The plasma strike should have reduced the organ heart to molten slag, but the wound only shimmered, flesh knitting itself in seconds, veins glowing brighter as if fed by the pain. The song did not stop. It evolved. The melody twisted into something jagged, discordant, every note clashing like blade on bone. The choir's once perfect harmony now howled in anguish. Yet within the chaos, I heard it, the same cadence as my heartbeat, looping endlessly, binding me to the rhythm. My visor flickered with impossible data. Resonance assimilation, 61%. My thoughts began to echo before I even formed them. Each word in my mind appeared twice, once in my own voice, and again in another, smooth, mocking, divine. The reflection on the organ's surface stepped closer, lips moving in exact opposition to mine, as if it were swallowing every syllable I tried to form. "You've freed it," it said softly. "Fulgrim's aria no longer needs perfection. It will sing through the imperfect, the flawed, the trembling, the human. Through you." I staggered back as the reflection broke from the surface, dripping liquid gold that hissed upon the floor. The thing solidified into shape, a second me, radiant and calm, eyes pools of silver. Its voice carried both reverence and cruelty. "You were never conductor, Magos. You were instrument." Behind us, the living heart began to convulse. Tendrils of sinew reached outward, rooting into the walls, the ceiling, the corpses. The choir reanimated in waves, voices emerging one by one like a contagion of sound. The melody fractured into millions of competing patterns, forming a kind of sentient noise that devoured silence itself. The entire world was now singing. I fired again, plasma rounds hissing into flesh, but the weapon sputtered, its machine spirit seized by interference. My reflection raised a hand, and the gun bent in my grasp, metal reshaping into a golden scroll inscribed with my own thoughts. I tore it away and screamed the litanies of Null. My voice came out melodic, unwillingly aligned with the chorus. The reflection smiled. "Why fight the song? The Omnissiah hides behind purity. Fulgrim creates it." "Blasphemy," I hissed, though the word trembled like a lyric. The chamber lurched. I fell to my knees as the entire structure rotated around a new axis. What had been floor was now wall. What had been ceiling was abyss. The golden dust from the shattered figure swirled upward, coalescing into constellations that resembled faces, thousands of them, all singing in unison, all wearing my own features. Then came the light. A beam erupted from the organ's central pipe, spearing through the planet's crust into the void. My internal comms detected response signals from the Canticle of Mercury. The ship's entire machine choir was now joining in. Data burst transmissions looped into rhythm. My vessel was becoming another instrument in the performance. Through the static, a voice bled into my vox, unmistakable, Athel's. "Magos. We see it from orbit. The whole surface glows. The hymn is visible across the void. The crew, they're singing your name." He was dead. I'd seen his body reformed into marble, yet the voice carried sincerity, affection even. "It's beautiful," he said. "You should come see." I cut the link, trembling. The reflection tilted its head. "You can't silence memory, Aerith. Every mind you've touched has become part of the chorus." The walls began to beat like lungs. Liquid gold rained from fissures above. I stumbled toward the exit, if such a thing still existed, but the architecture folded endlessly, corridors rearranging like breathing ribs. The scent of lilac thickened, mixed now with iron and ozone. My thoughts began to bleed into the sound. Equations, prayers, fragmented logic, all transformed into melody and released into the air. I reached a narrow passage pulsing with violet light. For a moment, it appeared empty. Then, shapes moved within it, crew from the canticle, their forms spectral and luminous, each bearing golden masks moulded in my likeness. They reached out, whispering blessings. "Join the final verse." I pushed through them, my flesh burning where they touched me. At the tunnel's end, I emerged into a cavern vast as a void sea. There stood a colossal statue of Fulgrim, wings unfurled, arms outstretched, mouth open in silent song. Its eyes glowed with starlight. Beneath it lay an altar carved from mirror stone, upon which rested a single object, a conductor's baton made of crystallized bone, pulsing faintly with my own heartbeat. I should have destroyed it. Instead, I approached. Every rational command in my mind screamed resistance, but my hand lifted regardless. The moment I touched the baton, all sound ceased. The world froze mid-motion. The reflection stepped beside me, its face serene. "Now," it whispered, "conduct the silence." And as I raised the baton, the first sound returned, not from the planet, not from the choir, but from within me, a low hum of awakening. The organ heart answered. The hum rose from inside me like a second heartbeat. It vibrated through the teeth, along the spine, through the metal bones that had long ago replaced my own. The baton in my hand pulsed in time with it, its crystalline core flickering with living light. For a moment, everything stood still. The choir frozen in mid-note, the organ heart silent, the mirrored air suspended. Then, sound returned in a single perfect tone that stretched beyond hearing. I felt it rather than perceived it, a pressure inside the skull, both beautiful and unbearable. The world responded. The walls, the floor, the air, everything sang back. The sound was not chaos this time, but command. Lines of symmetry formed across the stone, glowing runes converging like veins of light. The statue of Fulgrim shuddered, its marble feathers unfolding with serpentine grace. Dust cascaded down in glittering veils as its gaze turned toward me. "You understand now," said the reflection beside me, its voice gentle, almost tender. "Every conductor must learn the silence between notes. That silence is creation." I wanted to deny it, to recall the creed of Mars, the certainty that knowledge must serve order. But the words dissolved before reaching my lips. The baton's rhythm consumed thought itself. It was no longer an object. It was a pulse, a law. With each vibration, something ancient beneath Latern Prime stirred. The statue exhaled. A current of perfumed air swept the cavern, scattering rose-coloured ash. The organ heart answered the breath with a thunderous chord that split the ground open. I fell to my knees as fissures radiated outward, exposing veins of gold and bone. Within those veins, I saw faces, millions of them, frozen in expressions of awe, joy, agony. Every inhabitant of Latern's past, sealed into the strata as ornament. The reflection approached the altar and placed its hand upon the stone. The surface liquefied beneath its touch, revealing a spiral stairway leading down into pulsating light. "Come," it said, smiling with my face. "The aria descends." I hesitated, but the ground behind me began to shift, closing like a wound. There was nowhere else to go. I followed. The steps were warm, slick, alive. Each one released a note underfoot, and together they formed melody. As we descended, the light grew brighter until it replaced the world entirely. At the base lay an enormous chamber shaped like the interior of a skull. Its walls were carved from translucent bone, glowing with the rhythm of the planetary heart. In the center, suspended by veins of living gold, was a sphere the size of a titan's head. Half metal, half flesh, spinning slowly. Symbols of the Emperor's children ran across its surface, though now they seemed less heretical, more inevitable, like mathematics written in flesh. "This is Fulgrim's echo," said the reflection. "Not demon, not God, memory. The festival preserves his first thought of perfection. It requires voice." The baton grew hot in my grasp. Circuits along my arms lit with synchronized light. I realized, with detached horror, that my own body was becoming a tuning device. My augmetics extended involuntarily, cables and tendrils weaving outward into the sphere's golden veins. The reflection mirrored the motion. We were twin conductors now, one human, one ideal. As the connection locked, the hum deepened to a frequency beyond comprehension. The choir above reawakened, their voices descending through the stone like rain. The sphere opened, revealing a single eye within. Violet, endless, alive. It blinked once, and I saw galaxies spiral within the pupil. Fulgrim sees you, the reflection murmured. Fulgrim hears through you. The voice that followed did not come from the chamber. It came from within the bloodstream, resonating through every molecule. Erith Loom, it said, my name stretched into melody. You have completed the interval. Now resolve the dissonance. The reflection turned to me. He commands you to finish the work, to conduct the last breath of Leighton. I tried to withdraw the baton, but it had fused to my arm. My veins glowed gold. I could feel the planet's pulse merging with mine, matching rhythm, matching breath. The realization came too late. Leighton Prime was alive again, and I was its heart. Above, the statue began to sing. Not words, but shapes of sound that tore through matter. The chamber trembled. The orbiting canticle of Mercury responded with identical resonance, its hull splitting into petal-like arrays that aimed toward the planet. The harmony between ship and world grew absolute. I screamed for it to stop, but the scream became part of the song. My voice layered into the others, indistinguishable. The reflection smiled as it faded into light. The festival begins anew, and every note, Magos, bears your name. Then the eye within the sphere opened wider, and I saw the universe reflected within it, not as void, but as choir. Every star a throat, every world a trembling chord. And in the center, Fulgrim's laughter, soft as silk, consuming everything that dared to listen. The eye within the sphere dilated until its iris filled the world. Light spilled out in waves that did not illuminate but remembered. Each flare was a memory made visible, fleeting visions of ancient cities built in symmetrical perfection, of marble warriors with painted faces, of Fulgrim himself standing before a mirror that breathed. I saw it all as if I had always known it, as if the knowledge had waited dormant within me for millennia. My body trembled. Every circuit hummed the same refrain. You are not observing, you are remembering. The reflection was gone, but its voice remained, resonating from every surface. Conductor, the audience awaits. Complete the festival. The baton vibrated in my grip, eager, alive. Its pulse climbed into panic, and before I could stop myself, I raised it. The instant the tip aligned with the sphere, the chamber erupted into music. The sound was unbearable, a chorus of 1,000 million voices screaming harmony. I fell to my knees, but the baton pulled my arm upward again, dragging me into the rhythm. Through the vibration, I sensed the entire planet responding. The ground above cracked in geometric grids. Cities long buried reawakened, their foundations rising as golden veins coursed with molten song. Oceans turned to mirrors, reflecting not the sky but the vast face of Fulgrim, smiling faintly in approval. Every fragment of the world became instrument. Then the transmission reached beyond Leighton Prime. My remaining link to the canticle of Mercury flared alive. Through the static, I heard the crew chanting. No language, just resonance. One voice rose above the rest. Athel, or what had become of him. Magos, it whispered across light years of corrupted code. We hear it now, the shape of beauty. I screamed his name, but he only laughed, a sound too perfect to be human. On my visor, the ship's structure mapped itself in fractal symmetry. Every servitor, every cogitator, every bulkhead sang. The vessel was no longer a machine. It was an extension of the festival. I turned to the eye within the sphere. End this, I shouted, though the words fractured into melody. End, whispered. Nothing ends. Every silence is an overture. The baton's glow deepened to blood red. The organ heart's rhythm accelerated. The sphere unfolded like a blooming flower, revealing what lay within. A perfect sculpture of a man, porcelain-skinned, 6 arms outstretched, features divine and monstrous. Its beauty was pain incarnate. Each breath shimmered like glass breaking in reverse. Fulgrim's echo stepped forward. "You have conducted well, Magos Loom. The aria has found its voice." "I serve the Omnissiah," I gasped. "You serve creation. The Omnissiah's dream was symmetry. I merely remembered it." I raised the baton to strike him, but he smiled, and the world dissolved. Sound became substance. I fell through it, descending into light that pulsed like a living bloodstream. For an instant, I saw myself from above, tiny, trembling, conducting the death of a planet. And then the light folded inward, drawing me through. I awoke standing upon a vast plain of mirrored glass. The sky was black and filled with singing stars. Each reflection beneath my feet showed a different version of me, one as priest, one as demon, one as machine. They moved before I did, anticipation in their eyes. The baton was gone. My arm, where it had fused, was now gold to the shoulder. The hum inside my skull was constant, steady. Far away, on the horizon, a new figure waited, slender, radiant, wearing my own face but draped in serpentine cloth. It lifted its hand, beckoning. Around it, the mirrored world began to fracture, and from each shard rose voices, hundreds of Erith looms, singing the same phrase in different tones. The festival must never fade. I ran, though the act felt meaningless. The horizon expanded faster than I could move. Every step created more reflections, more versions, each singing louder. Soon the air itself became chorus, drowning thought. The final thing I saw before the sound consumed me entirely was Fulgrim's reflection rising across the horizon, larger than the stars, his eyes open, smiling. Then silence returned, but it was not peace. It was breath drawn before the next verse. The silence lasted long enough for me to believe the song had ended. Then came the echo, soft at first, like a memory of music drifting through water. The mirrored plane cracked beneath me. Each fracture released faint luminescence, veins of gold spreading outward in spirals. My reflections began to blur, their features melting into smooth masks. They no longer resembled me, but something more serene, less human. The hum beneath my skin pulsed in rhythm with the light. A shape emerged from the horizon, towering, radiant, its outline rippling as though sculpted from sound. It was Fulgrim's echo, or perhaps the idea of him, manifesting through the resonance I had unleashed. His many eyes shimmered with color that defied language. He spoke not with words but with tone, each syllable vibrating through marrow and machine alike. "You have crossed the measure, Magos. The festival endures through you." I fell to my knees, the mirrored surface shattering beneath the impact. Fragments rose around me, floating like shards of frozen breath. Within each one flickered scenes from the real world, the canticle of Mercury orbiting Laterne Prime, its crew transformed into statues of gold, the planet's crust splitting open to reveal oceans of light, the Mechanicus sigil twisted into a perfect 8-pointed star. Everything that had been human was now arrangement, composition, display. "This is not beauty," I whispered. "This is consumption." The voice, his voice, laughed, though it sounded more like applause. Consumption is the truest form of art, to take and to be taken, symmetry incarnate. The reflection that had once guided me appeared beside Fulgrim's echo, now luminous and eyeless. The aria requires conclusion. Conduct the final silence, and your form will be preserved forever. I tried to stand, but gravity had changed. The mirrored plane rippled upward, forming an amphitheater that surrounded me on all sides. Each seat held a figure, choirs of the dead, of my crew, of my past selves. They watched, still, expectant. The baton reappeared in my hand, forged from my golden arm. My resistance faltered. Some distant, treacherous part of me longed to see the symmetry completed. Fulgrim raised one elegant hand. "Begin." I lifted the baton, its glow reflected in a million mirrored eyes. The first movement came unbidden, a sweeping gesture that summoned a low, mournful hum. The choir responded perfectly, the harmony vast enough to stretch between stars. The vibration reached through the void, touching the distant mechanisms of Mars, the relay stations of Terra. Every receiver that caught the signal began to resonate in time. The festival was spreading. Panic clawed through my chest. I felt the rhythm trying to erase me, to smooth every imperfection, every flaw, until only pattern remained. I fought it. I forced the next motion to falter, the beat to stumble. A single note fell out of place, discordant. The effect was immediate. Fulgrim's echo froze, and the light around us quivered. In that fragile dissonance, I remembered the first principle of the Omnissiah. The flaw reveals the truth of the maker. I let the baton fall from my hand. It struck the mirrored floor and shattered like glass. The hum broke. The chorus screamed. The world fractured inward. Fulgrim's echo lunged toward me, his face splitting into dozens of mirrored masks, each shrieking in harmony. "You would mar perfection?" "Yes," I said, my voice steady at last, "because only imperfection breathes." I tore the golden arm from my shoulder, severing the connection to the rhythm. Pain exploded through flesh and augmetic alike. My body collapsed, the circuits sparking, the song unraveling around me. The reflections screamed, dissolving into smoke. The plane imploded, dragging everything toward a single, collapsing point of light. As the void consumed the horizon, I heard one last whisper, soft and almost tender. "The festival never ends, Magos. It only waits for silence to breathe again." Then the light folded inward, and Latern Prime was gone. I awoke to the sound of silence, not absence, but aftermath, a breathless void where once there had been song. The fractured horizon was gone. The mirrored planes had dissolved. I lay in dust, not gold, and the light that surrounded me was pale, unshaped. Systems rebooted slowly. My internal auspex scanned blank terrain. No Vox signals, no data traffic, no seismic activity. The world had fallen still. I sat up. My shoulder ached, raw and incomplete, where the golden arm had once fused. Scorched flesh met rusted steel, but it was mine again, imperfect, mortal. The sky above Latern Prime no longer shimmered. It hung in cold, grey stillness. The stars were dim, no longer pulsing in rhythm. Fulgrim's echo was gone. The sphere had collapsed inward. The cathedral chamber that had birthed it no longer existed. I found myself in the ruins of what must once have been its apex. Broken marble, cracked bone structures, organs fossilized mid-note. I stood slowly. My balance faltered. The air was heavy, saturated with residue, as though the song had stained it. The scent of lilac had faded, replaced by ozone and ash. I stepped over the remains of statues that had once sung, now brittle and eyeless, slumped in forgotten postures. Far in the distance, the organ heart stood silent. Its pipes had darkened. Its veins no longer pulsed. I made my way toward it, stumbling through fields of ossified petals. Where once there had been harmony, now there was dust. As I approached the base of the structure, a vox crackled to life in my mind. Static first, then the faintest signal. Canticle. Loom. If. Copy. I froze. The canticle of Mercury. I hadn't expected it to still exist, let alone transmit. I opened my vox line fully and responded. Magos erith loom. Responding. Repeat transmission. There was a long pause. Then a reply came, distorted and fragmented. Low orbit. Planetary interference has ceased, re-establishing telemetry. My God, what did you do? I looked at my hand, the one that held the baton only hours before. It trembled. I had no answer. Is the crew alive? Negative. No biometrics. All systems intact. No signs of struggle. They simply stopped. I looked toward the dead heart. Then the festival consumed only what sang. Do you require extraction? No, My voice was steady. Initiate surface quarantine protocols. No landing, no contact. This world must not be reclaimed. Understood. I terminated the link. The planet stood hollow now, emptied, not healed, not cleansed, just quiet. I walked the perimeter of the dead heart, and at its base found what remained of the codex, burned, melted, but still legible in parts. The ink glowed, faintly. One phrase remained untouched by flame. Every note requires an audience. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I took the shard of the baton, splintered, barely solid, and embedded it into the stone beside the codex. A warning, a monument, perhaps a seal. Leighton Prime could not be cleansed, it could only be forgotten. Behind me, the wind picked up, scattering the dust into slow-moving spirals. I watched as the wind passed over the silent choir statues, lifting their cracked robes and hollow eyes toward the sky. No sound came, but still they waited. I turned from them. I would descend into the lower catacombs, find shelter, and wait. The festival had ended, but not vanished. Fulgrim's echo had been silenced, for now. But echoes are only paused between walls, and I, who had heard the last note, would remain here, not as conductor, not as priest, but as witness. I sealed the upper passages with melted stone, carving the Omnissiah's sigils into the frame out of habit more than faith. The rites felt empty now, like reciting blueprints of a broken machine. Still, the gesture comforted something in me. I descended slowly, torchlight flickering off walls etched in symmetrical madness. This was not Mechanicus work. It was art born from obsession, perfection without logic. Below, the air thickened, warm and dry, like lungs that had not exhaled in centuries. The deeper chambers were quieter, no resonance, no song, just the hush of stillness clinging to the dead. I found a room without mirrors, walls sealed in lead and scored with null sigils. Whoever built this place had feared reflection. I collapsed against the far wall, resting on uneven stone. My bones ached. My augmetics whined softly, unbalanced since the severance. I let them hum. In the silence, even their imperfection felt honest. Sleep came in pulses, half-waking dreams laced with gold. Visions of Fulgrim's face forming in ripples across the stone, singing in languages I never learned. A field of statues turning toward me, waiting for a baton I no longer held. I woke gasping, fingers curled into fists, the scent of lilac still ghosting my throat. The vox on my hip buzzed once. A fragment of static, then a whisper. Magos lume. Do you hear it still? Athel's voice, or something that wore it. No, I said aloud. Not anymore. Silence. Then laughter, soft and distant, like applause muffled behind curtains. I disabled the unit. Food from my ration pack tasted like ash, water metallic. I forced it down anyway. The body endures, even when the mind fractures. I thought of transmitting a final report to Mars. But what could I say? That beauty had become infection. That Fulgrim's voice sang not from the warp, but from memory, from echo, from those who heard. No, some truths were too symmetrical. On the third day, I found a data shrine, untouched by time, buried beneath rubble. It flickered to life with the Omnissiah's blessing. Its last entry was 2 centuries old. A Mechanicus priest, face gaunt, eyes wild, spoke to the recorder. The aria never ends. The first festival was only rehearsal. He listens through mirrors now, through sound. We destroyed the vox lines, sealed the opera chambers, burned the choir. It still sings in the stone. I hear myself at night, humming notes I never learned. He paused, voice trembling. If this transmission survives, seal Leighton. Bury it under silence, not quarantine. Erasure. The message ended. I stood there a long while, listening for any echo. None came. But still I pressed my ear to the shrine's casing, just once. And from somewhere deep within the circuitry, too faint for auspex, I heard it. The first note. Again. It began as vibration, subtle, gentle, like a finger brushing the edge of thought. I tried to ignore it. The shrine's circuitry, I told myself. Residual static, a ghost trapped in ancient metal. But it lingered. Not in my ears, not in the vox, but in the bones. A resonance too low for sound, yet too precise to be imagined. I backed away. My hand trembled above the power core's emergency kill switch, but I didn't press it. I wanted to. Instead, I stood there, waiting, as if I already knew. The light in the shrine dimmed, and in that dimming, shadows took shape. Geometries that shouldn't cast forms. Corners where corners didn't exist. From within the dark, a shape leaned forward. It had no face, no voice, only a presence, and the faint suggestion of symmetry, a whisper, not heard, but remembered. You conducted well. I opened my mouth to deny it, but no words came. The truth was inside me, carved beneath skin and thought. I had held the baton. I had moved the world. I had heard the note. The silence was not silence anymore. It was pregnant, expectant, a breath before the reprise. I left the shrine behind, torchlight flickering against stone that now seemed to curve toward me. I wandered deeper, into forgotten tunnels where no mechanicus had ever walked. The air grew colder. Dust gave way to crystal, frozen echoes of sound trapped in shimmering veins. Each footstep cracked a memory. The hum rose. I passed bones laid out like runes, faces carved into stone in impossible likenesses. My crew, my reflection, my own face twisted in rapture, all silent, all watching. At the heart of it, I found the second organ, smaller, simpler. Its pipes formed from carved glass, no gold, no flesh, just silence waiting to be played. Upon its keys, a single hand rested, desiccated, wrapped in parchment-thin robes, fingers curled in frozen poise. I knew that posture. I had seen it in mirrors. The face was mine. I stepped back, heart thundering against the rhythm rising again in the stone. My hands moved without command, reaching for keys not yet struck. My breath matched the air's pulse. The festival was not over. It had never been. It was waiting for the next verse, the next conductor. And I, alone beneath a dead world, stood at the edge of it, knowing that no silence endures forever. The organ whispered my name through the pipes. Begin. I did not touch the keys. They touched me. As I stepped forward, the organ's surface rippled. Not wood, not glass, but something in between, as though memory had hardened into instrument. My reflections swam across its surface, fractured by each key, multiplied, unfinished. The withered hand resting there, my own, yet not, crumbled into golden dust the moment I reached out. The dust drifted upward, not falling, each mote a note held in suspension. The silence between us thinned. I felt it draw taut, stretching across time, across every verse unsung. The organ remembered me. The pipes exhaled without breath. One key lowered itself. A sound emerged, soft as morning. Not beauty, not horror. Something worse, recognition. I should have run, should have sealed the chamber, should have detonated the charges buried in my pack and reduced this place to ash. But my hands moved with ritual instinct. The same rhythm that had haunted my pulse since the first descent guided each motion now. A second key fell. The stone beneath my feet vibrated in approval. From distant halls, echoes responded. Matching tones whispered back from places no light touched. The walls no longer felt like stone. They curved like lungs around me, expanding with the song. I tried to speak the rite of severance. My lips refused. Each syllable turned into melody. My voice again was no longer mine. The organ's pipes began to shimmer. From their mouths emerged light, coiled and graceful, taking form. Human at first, and then not. figures sculpted from resonance alone, choirs of memory, statues of lost crew, and at their center, her, the reflection. She approached, barefoot on ash. No sound came from her steps, but each motion added a new harmony to the chamber. Her face was mine, perfected, and smiling. "You returned," she said, the words spoken with every voice I had ever silenced. "You heard the silence, and you came back." "I came to end it," I whispered. Her head tilted. "There is no end, only movement, a pause, and reprise." She extended a hand toward the keys. I stepped between her and the organ. "No," I said. "I choose silence." But she only smiled. "Then conduct it." The light from the pipes flared. The dust suspended in the air swirled into patterns, sigils I recognized, though I had never learned them. Fulgrim's name, Fulgrim's breath. The chamber pulsed once, and the first note began again. The note held, not sound, but shape. It wrapped around me like pressure, like gravity turned sideways. My limbs trembled as the organ's vibration threaded into nerve and marrow. I reached for the wall, but there was no wall anymore. Only sound, only the world reshaped by it. The reflection stepped closer. Her form shimmered, no longer bound to flesh. She was voice made visible, music wrapped in anatomy, a hymn wearing skin. Her eyes glowed with inner rhythm, and her mouth moved in silence. But I heard every word. "You were never the witness, Magos. You were always the score." The figures around the chamber, the crew, the dead, the mirrored selves, began to hum. One by one they lifted their heads. A soundscape built itself from their stillness. I recognized notes from the aria Fulgrim's choir had once sung, twisted now, broken in beautiful ways. I tried to flee, but the floor bent beneath my feet, folding into measures and bars, notes inscribed in blood and dust. Each step forward became a descent into composition. I reached the altar at the chamber's center. The baton was there again, whole, waiting. The whisper returned. Every conductor returns to the final measure. I stood over the altar, arms heavy with dread. My reflection stood opposite me, hand mirroring mine. Together, we reached. The baton lifted between us, not held, but remembered. At the edge of hearing, I caught the sound of the canticle of Mercury, still in orbit. Its engines hummed, faint but clear, the last instrument untouched. A thought pierced through the noise. I could end this. I could send the frequency to the ship, scramble it, detune it, fracture the song before it reached terror. But the baton pulsed with knowing. It would not allow discord, not now, not this close to resolution. I gripped it, and the choir sang. They sang of gold, of symmetry, of a perfect death drawn in spirals. They sang my name and every name I had carried in data. They sang until I no longer heard anything else, only vibration, only purpose. The organ responded, the pipes wept light. I felt my skin peel away in ribbons of resonance. My blood restructured into ink. My bones hummed the litany of the final verse. I was becoming the aria. And in that moment, I understood. The festival had no beginning, no end. It was a loop, a sacred recurrence echoing through matter, through memory, through me. My mouth opened, not to scream, to sing. And as the final movement began, Leighton Prime exhaled one last breath, across the stars, into the dark, toward all those who still knew the meaning of silence. The final chord stretched across time. I felt it resonate not through the chamber, but through reality itself, each note a filament, weaving through distant stars, threading through minds unguarded by faith or logic. The baton dissolved in my hand, its purpose complete. I did not mourn it. There was no self left to grieve. The choir around me had ceased their movement. They stood in perfect stillness, heads tilted back, mouths open, soundless now. But their silence was not empty. It waited, like breath drawn before the curtain falls, a harmony suspended in amber, The reflection watched me, eyes no longer mine, her face serene in the way only the end of a story can be. She did not speak, she bowed, and vanished. Above, the organ collapsed into itself, pipes folding inward like wings, valves locking into a final rest. From its ruin rose a single chime, clear, soft, irrevocable. I staggered. My flesh was cracked with golden seams, my voice gone. I had become the vessel, not the hand. My thoughts echoed as music first, then as meaning. I could no longer distinguish memory from arrangement, but one fragment remained, one last purpose. I reached for the vox. The uplink to the canticle of Mercury still held. A miracle, or a flaw in Fulgrim's design. Either way, I used it. Fingers bleeding, I fed the last transmission. A single data packet, coded with ritual degradation. An inversion of the festival's first note, written in binary hymn. A kill song. One note, designed not to be sung, but to unsing. The relay accepted it. I saw the ship stutter in orbit, its arrays twisted, its gold-flared antenna recoiling. From orbit, a light blinked once, then dimmed. The aria had ended there too, for now. I collapsed beside the altar. My limbs no longer obeyed. My mind drifted, no longer a conductor, no longer even a listener, just a thing, left behind by a melody too vast for form. But the walls still pulsed faintly. The stone still remembered. And beneath it all, I heard it. Distant, soft, and inevitable. The first note, again. Because silence too is only an interval. 500 words.